Welcome to the Clifton Worley Show. This week we have the Worleybirds again to hang out with you guys. Josh Fraser and Michael Newman, and we have got a show for you. What's up, guys?
What's up, Clifton?
Hey, man.
Well, I thought it would be fitting to, we've got topics, and boy do we have some topics for you, but I thought before we jump into some topics, it would be fun to kind of catch up what's been going on. It's been a couple weeks since we recorded, and just kind of go around, and I guess I will Michael, if you'll go first, Josh, you'll go after that, and then I'll fill out the details in the end.
Okay, what's new with me? Well, we survived Easter, but we can talk about that a little bit later. I am trying to get a Jazzmaster done that I've been sitting on for a while. I had a metallic pink color Jazzmaster made by MJT. I've been sitting on that for 6 months or more. I have a set of Creamery pickups that I literally got a year ago that I've been sitting on, and I'm just trying to get this thing together. And I have a wiring harness that I got from Gun Street wiring shop, and I completely forgot what he made me. So that dude, I emailed him, and he was like on it. He just emailed me back. He's like, oh yeah, this was the, series parallel, coil split, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. And now I'm just trying to get it together, and I'm an idiot when it comes to wiring this stuff. And like, what's confusing to me is the wires are different colors. So the wires that are on the Creamery pickup, I have 5 wires, and they're various colors. And then what's on the layout diagram for Gun Street is there's some similar colors, like same colors, but they're not all the same. And it turns out it's not the same thing. So I'm trying to just get an understanding of what to put where. And poor Sean from Gun Street, he's explained it to me a few times, and I'm like, huh? So anyway, needless to say, I have a guitar sitting over here open with, it's not hooked up yet. And that's literally the last thing I got to do. The neck and all that's set up. I've already put all the bridge stuff on. It's ready to go. It'll need a setup, but that's the main thing that's new with me, as I'm just trying to get this thing finished so I can play it. I was hoping to play it for Easter, and I just did not get it done. So that's pretty much what's new with me. Nothing too exciting.
Nothing too exciting.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it is exciting. I don't know. Is that exciting? It is kind of exciting.
Yeah, well, I think so. I mean, you got a guitar coming together that you've been sitting on for a while. It'd be awfully cool to actually play it. I think that's pretty exciting.
I'm just mostly frustrated at this point. 'Cause I'm like, let me just get this thing done.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, for me, we can talk about some of the Easter stuff when it comes time, but I can say that the week before I had a horrible time. Combination of effects of things happening affected my playing experience. First off, I played my last week. I played my Strat, or the week before last, before Easter, I played my Strat, and it just isn't me anymore. I tried really hard to enjoy it, and it just I wasn't having any fun playing. And to top it off, I wasn't feeling like I was sounding very good, and I wasn't feeling like I was in the right place in the mix. So yeah, I basically, the big thing that I changed on my board is I put on I put my chorus back on in place of my Mojo Mojo, and I've talked about that before. There's something about that buffer that I just love. And then of course I switched back to my archtop. But that was my big thing. Oh, and I've got a acoustic gig bag coming that I've wanted for a long time. Musician's friend was giving out $10 free in backstage pass points for me for Easter.
Yeah.
And so I jumped on that, and I'm like, well, okay, I'm just going to buy this bag. I really like the Ibanez Power Pad bags, but not because they're not great. They're about Roadrunner quality, but they come in like really light colors, which is nice for summertime, so that the bag doesn't get too hot and it stays breathable. I've noticed that when you put a guitar in a gig bag, like if you're just hauling in and hauling out, it's actually better in the car because it kind of just stays car temperature rather than kind of baking in that black hard case.
Yeah.
You know, unless a case is like hermetically sealed, they just tend to cook inside of them. And so I got that for that and for festivals and stuff because it's kind of nice to have a gig bag that fits a little loose, not too tightly, and I can just carry around my stuff for sure. So that was basically the only thing new I got this week. Let's see here. Yeah, that's about it. Played a couple. Played a jam and learned about the Flying Burrito Brothers, and that was interesting. And then who else? Oh, and the dude that was telling me about them and was playing their songs was like taking what's his name, Keats, a poet named Keats, and he was taking that and setting it to music. And it's like, man, that's really interesting. And it's kind of like a 70s rock style. I mean, he brought a no name Strat and a Line 6 Spider to an acoustic jam. And that was it was okay. He wasn't doing too bad with. I mean, he was obviously quite a lot louder than everybody else. And thankfully, this particular jam had mics set up for everybody who was in the circle.
Yeah.
But there's still a big difference between an amp being, and of course I'm the one sitting right by the guy, and so like I couldn't really hear anything but besides him. But it was okay because thankfully he wasn't too overbearing. But it was really interesting to hear some new music and to hear kind of 60s and 70s psychedelic country. And then get introduced through that to Graham Parsons, who I'd never really heard of.
Oh yeah,
And try to listen to the Byrds, but the Byrds was just too flippin' hippie for me. And then the stuff that wasn't hippie was too flippin' close to the Eagles. So
Bless your heart.
Did you listen to any Poco perhaps?
I want to, because actually I think I have in the past, and that was part of the reason why I don't like the Eagles.
Okay.
Because well, they would take all the good people who would be great in other bands and just jam them together into these stupid. Maybe it's why I'm not crazy about Led Zeppelin too. Imagine what they would have did if there were people around them that were not the same.
That's thought-provoking. Yeah.
I mean, look at any supergroup and just imagine if they would have been constrained in some way and had to have some kind of limited palette. And I just think it would have turned out better. But that's me philosophizing and old manning and getting off my lawning. What about you, Clifton? What's new with you?
Man, you dropped a bomb and then like took a run for it.
That's hey, if you don't know me by now, you'll never ever ever know me. To quote what's his name? Aaron Neville? Is that Aaron Neville?
I don't know. We'll have to Google that. I've got my phone turned off because it interferes with my microphone. But what is new with me? Several things actually. One, I kind of talked to you guys about it a little bit behind the scenes. We've got a guy playing with us in church that he's actually a pretty good player. Started playing with us recently in the last month, and he hasn't played in several years and doesn't have a guitar or anything, which is an unusual scenario. And it got me thinking, like, right now he's using one of my guitars and one of the church amps, and I was thinking of a way to like maybe try to find a guitar that was inexpensive, but a player's guitar that was actually, somebody who could play, would enjoy playing it. And I happened on so I'd been looking for several weeks, and I was sending you guys links back and forth, and I found this Squire popped up like for the guy wanted like $75 for it. I messaged him like last Friday. It was like, is are you firm on the price? You know, just seeing where he was at on it. And he was like, I'll do, um, what did he say? $70. And I didn't respond real quick back to it. And he was like, okay, I'll do 60. I was like, okay,
Nice.
well, I'll drive. He was about 20 minutes down the road. I said, I'll meet you within an hour. And went down there and got it. And it was, it looked like a kid who was either in high school or like had just gotten out of high school. And there was several strings broke on the thing. And he just, in the conversation, like I was trying to ask him questions about the guitar, and he was like, I don't know. This was just handed down to me in the family. I don't play. And so
Oh.
I don't think he had any interest in the guitar whatsoever. It was laying around. But so what was perplexing me about it was I wanted to identify like what kind of Strat this was, because all it said was Squire by Fender on the headstock, and there was no markings on the back like country of origin. No, I ended up taking the thing apart and looking in the neck pocket, and there was no serial number. And so I put it out in 60 cycle hum, and I was getting kind of some conflicting things like, oh, this could be made in India, this could be made in China, or I forgot some of the other. And so somebody had mentioned that they said, I'm pretty sure this is an SE, which I think would stand for like special edition. And it was, I don't know when they did the special edition. I think it was several years back. But it was like the guitar that they would throw in the pack with like the little gig bag and an amplifier inside a cardboard box, like as a Christmas present, like an all-in-one package. And so there's nothing super special about it, other than, unlike most of the Squire Strats, aren't built to the same like body thickness and nut width and all of those things. Like this one actually is very similar to the same dimensions as like a made in Mexico or a made in America one. Okay, it's like standard Strat dimensions, and the neck on it's pretty beefy, which is, if you're a player, typically that's what you want, not the little thin affinity necks, right? So I got I got that. I put it back together. I put strings on it. For the most part, it plays pretty good. There's one spot like on the B string that I get up around between the 12th and the 15th fret where like when I play it, like it frets out, but if I go to do a bend, it's rubbing on one of the frets further down the fretboard. So I gotta fix that. And the five-way switch has like a little bit of problem with it. Like there's some positions you go into and it shorts out. So I'm thinking might need to upgrade the switch. Pickups aren't terrible, about like what you expect. So my thought was with this thing was either let this guy use it temporarily, um, and you know if he goes on to get something better, I can flip it. Or I had the other idea, maybe if I didn't deem this as a great guitar, I could maybe try to flip it and keep flipping up to something better. So I don't know. If anybody has any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear from you. But that's a couple of days before that, I was out in the pawn shop, so looking around. So this would have been like on the Wednesday, and I I went to like three or four of them, and the last one I went to, this guy never has anything good. It's mostly like tools and guns like he never has anything good like music equipment wise. So So decided to step in and check, and he had the same 3 guitars on the wall that are like way overpriced, and they're complete junk. And so I just said, "Do you have anything guitar?" And he said, "Well, I've got an amp switcher, which is basically like the channel switcher on like one of those solid state amps. I don't remember what brand it was, but like, no thanks." And then he says, "Well, actually, do you want a free guitar amplifier?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, he literally, okay, so he had a like a barrel trash can, and like he proceeds to reach inside and reach way down and pull out this little practice amp and shake off the sawdust off of it. And he hands it to me. He's like, "Yeah, I turned this thing on and it didn't work right. And I don't mess with broken things." And he's like, "I don't know, maybe you can use it for the speaker or something." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take it," because I knew that like these little solid state transistor amps, there's not much that can go wrong with them. And it's like, sure. So it's like a little Epiphone 15 watt with reverb. And it had like a clean and a dirty channel, like 3-band EQ. And so I took it back to the office, and I plugged it in, and it came on. So I was like, first I was like, "Oh sweet, this thing's working," but it wasn't putting out like signal. Like I plugged my guitar into it, and I thought it was the channel switch. Like it was a cheapy little small. Everything on this thing is small pots and cheap switches and everything. So I'm playing with it, and it's coming on and off and whatever. And then I had this memory of this PV amp that I'd picked up a couple years back, and it wouldn't put out signal. And I remember taking the input jack and spraying deoxit in it and working like a instrument cable in and out of that jack until like it broke up some corrosion inside, and then it worked perfect. And so I didn't have the can of deoxit, but I took a cable and just kind of like in and out, trying to, if there's any kind of corrosion inside the jack on the contacts, maybe to wear it off. Sure enough,
Yeah.
it did exactly like I thought it would, and it started working. It's worked like a charm ever since. And
Actually, I did that with the Mossrite that I fixed a few months ago.
oh yeah,
Because the jacks get super corroded.
yeah,
And like it's almost like when it's like a barrier that stops it from doing it, stops it from moving. And so I deoxid it, and then I deoxited it, and then just put a jack in it, in and out a whole bunch of times. And then I took a t-shirt and scrubbed it until it shone. And actually, what did I do? I took like a little bit of sandpaper and I sanded the thing.
mm-hmm.
I sanded it, and then when it was shiny, it worked just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, I mean, it's funny how people. I was wondering how many amplifiers have been thrown away because of something stupid like that.
Yeah. If it doesn't release the factory smoke, like several of my amps have,
Yeah.
you're probably okay.
Yeah. And the power indicator light's on. You know that
Yeah.
it takes the transformers got to work for it to do that. So
Yeah. Just throw it against the wall. It'll probably work better.
yeah. But so anyways, I've got this little starter rig, and I got to set it up for him. I can tell you this one thing, and this kind of segues into maybe my next thought. But that amplifier, when I played it, I was highly unsatisfied with it. But when I rehearsed with this guy, and he was playing it, like I didn't have a problem with it. Isn't that weird?
Interesting.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, it's putting out a lot of volume on the stage. And it's just a little 8-inch speaker. But it was fun.
Why do you think that is? Was it the feel of it
I think it's the feel.
more than the sound of it?
Yeah, I think it's the feel of it. I'm used to something else. but
You're used to them tubes.
I am. It's a kind of like a placebo effect, I guess. So, well, let's jump into a topic here. And this I'm gonna give a shout out to Co Schneider. He posted something in the group this last week about Premier Guitar did a rig rundown with John Bollinger did a rundown with Tab Benoit, and Tab's like a blues guitarist. If you haven't heard his music, you need to go check it out. I had heard of Tab, but I hadn't really paid attention to his music, and when I started listening to it some this week, and I was like, oh man, I should have been listening to this all along. I love it. But he's kind of your typical bluesman. He's kind of like your guitar straight into amp kind of guy, no pedals. And he had a very interesting rig. But he made a statement that really was thought provoking to me. And he said what he was talking about is that he had played a Fender Twin and a Fender Super paired together like in a mono setup for years. And he was happy with it. But he had an amp builder come to him and was like, I want to build some amps for you. And it was doing it to some of the proceeds from it were going to go towards some kind of like swamp foundation that Tab has to try to bring awareness to the bayou kind of disappearing slowly over time because the Gulf of Mexico is kind of swallowing it up. And anyway, so he was all about the idea, but he was like, this has got to be good, or I'm not gonna want to play these amps. And he made a statement. He said, because you can play in the store or at home and be super pumped and, oh, I got this new amplifier, it's awesome. But you get on stage, and he said, then it can sound like cardboard and you don't want it. And so I got to thinking, I said, what is a non-negotiable? What is it about? And I think every player has something different, but what is your non-negotiable that you have to have or you don't want to play it live? And kind of we can talk about our experience with that. So I guess we'll kind of go around the table here. Michael, we'll start with you.
Oh, gracious. What is a non-negotiable? Well, I don't have to have an actual amp, as y'all well. I might argue that the Kemper is an amp, but that's an argument for a different day. But for sake of argument, let's just say I don't need an analog speaker pushing behind me. Those are great, but I mean, I don't even currently play with that. I need something that I guess sounds good to me, and that edge of breakup sound I need a lot. I also need something that is dynamic, that when I dig in, it gets dirtier. When I play lighter, it cleans up. Same with the volume. If I roll the volume back, it doesn't, it cleans up a little. Man, non-negotiable. I don't know. I can make a lot work, I think. But as far as being happy, I don't know. I guess my non-negotiable is a Kemper. So there we go. I don't know. I'm just so very happy with the Kemper. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I very am much happy with it. I do want to get an HX Stomp and try it. Well, I will tell you this. As much as I like pedals and I think they're fun, I very much like an all-in-one system where I click one button and I am on the preset performance that I need for a particular song. So my BPMs are set, the delay's there, I don't want to have to click 3 or 4 buttons and push in a tap tempo to get to where I need to be for the playing. And And maybe I overcomplicate things when I set my rigs up. But when my Kemper was out, I actually used my Atomic Firebox, and I had to be much more conscious about, okay, what pedals do I need on and what pedals do I need off, and oh, what's the tempo of this song? Okay, I'm about to start. The click has started. I have 3 beats or 4 beats before I start playing. I have to get this tempo correct. And I could have set a tap tempo in on my delay, but I don't know. I very much like just clicking one button, ready to go. So I think something like an HX Stomp or the Axe Effect stuff. And there's a bunch of other companies that do kind of all-in-one units. But I like having presets. I don't like to have to... I have a hard enough time playing as it is. And if I'm playing, doing a bunch of fancy footwork, trying to get my gear where it needs to be, I'm going to miss stuff. I'm just going to miss it. So, and not play as good as I can. Even though now I may make some mistakes, I'm at least more on it because I hit one button, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
I don't know. And there's a difference between me playing at home and me playing at church, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I don't know. The game is on when, it's live. It's people, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to miss my cue, especially if, some of these songs are very guitar driven, so I don't want to miss it. So anyway, does that make sense?
Yeah. I think, and the thing you said about playing differently at home and on stage makes sense too.
For sure.
All right, what's y'all's non-negotiables? This is a tough question.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm realizing it's my guitar. It's having a guitar that I'm just completely bonded with. And really, any drive that... actually, I'm finding more that I'm using with my archtop, I'm using my distortion on my GT as my bass tone. On my GT 500 as my bass tone. And I just turn the drive all the way down on it just so that it gets a tiny bit of hair if I hit it hard. And then I put a boost after it. And so really it's just my guitar and my GT 500 and probably my alter ego and my Hoff, but any delay I think or any reverb would be okay as long as it's quiet. And right now it's the Buffalo because really I can dial in my parametric EQ right where I need it to be. Yeah, and I think that's really what's important to me when I'm playing electric. It's really because being able to just have a good bass sound. Now I like having my tremolo. And I like having my chorus now that I have it, but if I have to pull one of those out, I won't really miss it that much when I'm playing. Or if I have to go direct with just the archtop into say a direct box, I won't be that happy. But if I have a responsive sound guy, I'll be okay. Mm-hmm. But what else? I don't know. I think that's about it, really. I mean, the hard part of deciding what's a non-negotiable, and you know what? I think doing the bedroom or the music room and the music practice versus practicing or playing and rehearsing at church or on stage or the big difference for me is that when I'm at home, I really trust myself to go all out in my playing. And then playing out, I tend to do that a little bit less. And then let's see what else. The funny thing is that when you're playing like when you practice without in-ears through the week, and then you go and play say on Sunday morning and pop your in-ears in for the first time that week, you're very unsatisfied with your sound.
Mm.
Because if you got a 12-inch speaker pointed right at your head, and you're pushing air all week while you're practicing, and then you've got in-ears which sound okay normally, but you're not used to them. You sound very small.
Mm-hmm.
You sound very small and very weak, or very very spiky or very peaky. The way that we do it at our church, there's a specific reason for this. Each channel is not EQ'd. Each channel on the Aviom is not EQ'd. It's flat. But then there's a extra channel that has the house mix in it where everything's EQ'd. And the reason we do that is because I asked the sound guy about it. I'm like, man, I sound a lot better in the extra channel than I do in my individual channel. He's like, yeah, well, I've put everything flat in those channels because if I didn't, what I was having people do is I was doing the EQ that I wanted to do, and then people were EQing themselves automatically to hear what they wanted to hear, continually. Mm-hmm. And so what would end up happening is we would just end up with these extreme EQ curves because on both sides we were working against each other without even knowing it. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it happened. Yeah, in that, so that makes it feel like I'm small if I don't practice with my in-ears, because I'm getting that great sound in the basement. Oh, and something I can crank the mids up on. Anything that I can crank the mids up on for playing. They're necessary, and that, you don't get that scoop, and that's what I've always noticed. Everybody who played electric before me always went for that Fender sound.
Yeah.
That typical, and whether they used an effect or used like a Boss pedal, like the big Boss pedal one of the guys did, and then the other dude used a modified little Fender tube amp, and then he on top of it used a what's it called, sonic maximizer,
Mm-hmm.
and so you got a scoopy amp and you're adding a scoopy pedal. Because that's what Sonic Maximizer does. It kind of gives you ultra high frequencies like that sparkle and that thump. Mm-hmm. And so they would just both of them would always get lost in the mix. But me, I just crank the mids up, and I can be heard. So something I can crank the mids on. Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Clifton?
Well, I think my non-negotiable is, well, a couple things. One is I'm addicted to the air moving sound. Okay. So,
yeah.
I guess that's why I haven't converted to in-ear yet. Although I see the point in it. So, I guess the big thing is I like to be able, one thing that's just non-negotiable for me is being able to dial in enough volume where I can get where I need to go, like the highest dynamic I'm going to get, but not be too loud. But at the same time, like where I can come off of that and play real intricately, but still hear. And that's whether I'm playing electric guitar or I'm playing direct in with my acoustic. Like, I've got to have that range of dynamics where, I've played in situations where in sound check, like, they only give you just enough in your monitor mix, and you're maxed out on your volume that you're giving them from your line, like say on acoustic guitar or if you're going direct, and you don't have enough to give yourself some ability to go in and out dynamic wise. And that's probably the biggest reason that I switched away from like Line 6 and Vox digital amps, because I felt like there was not any dynamics in the playing. When I went to tube amps, I was so much more pleasantly pleased by how you could kind of work your touch sensitivity a little bit and use it in your playing to go up and down in the dynamics. But I've also been pretty surprised how transistor amps will kind of get in the same ballpark, even though it doesn't sound as sweet when those amps clip. So I think what I really didn't like all those years was those cheap modeling amps. Now, that's not a knock against the new stuff, because I would love to try a Kemper or a HX Stomp, and I think those are probably great products and miles ahead of where it used to be when I was in the digital game. So that's a non-negotiable for me. Is being able to have that dynamic, that interaction between your guitar, being able to hear it, like if I'm playing with an amp, how it sounds in the room. It's got to fit. I remember one time I had a Fender Champ 600 that I was using a little bit, and it was converted. It had like upgraded transformers, and it had like a hand wired Champ circuit in it, and it sounded great. But the biggest issue I had with that is when I got to playing with a band. I didn't have that range of that dynamics when I was playing to be able to. For the only way for me to hear over the drums was for me to like wail away and lay into the guitar. I couldn't do the touch sensitive thing and it be heard. So that having an amp that's got enough dynamic range, I think that's my non-negotiable.
I can see that. Now, is that even more than a particular guitar?
I'm pretty picky about guitars. I don't switch up guitars a lot when I'm playing. So, I felt like I'm like Tab Benoit was a little bit like my soul animal, on that. Cause he plays a 72 thin line Telly he's had forever. And then his backup is another 72 thin line that he said he likes a little less than his main one, but it's so close that like if he breaks a string, he can stand to play it for a song until he gets his guitar back from the guitar tech. That's kind of how I am about guitars. Like I bond with something and I stay with it. I play. That's like my Taylor. I play every week. My when when I'm playing electric for the longest time, it was my Telly. I bond with something, and it's hard for me to want to play something else.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, that's me too, 100%. Yeah,
I don't even know why I own a stable full of guitars at this point, because I'm just so I'm so picky, and I just kind of get used to something and I like it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm the same way.
If I could jump back to a topic that Josh mentioned as far as pushing the mids.
Sure.
I actually, one of the things I've actually liked about the Kemper is the community that I'm in. And guys who have a better ear than me, who are better players than me, who have more experience than me, I've gotten performances from these guys. And so I can load them up. And they have, the overdrives and the reverbs and all that kind of set. And I've adjusted some, based on where I play. But I really never played a tube screamer until I started getting some of these performances. And then I started noticing, oh, this overdrive, it cuts. That's why it's so used, because it cuts.
Yeah.
So I've actually learned a lot from just getting performances from other guys. The other thing I will say is I battle with the playing at home, and I have found that when it sounds like enough reverb to me, and I typically will play. I have my Kemper hooked up to a 1x12. I also got it running through my sound system to another PA system, and then PA cabinet speaker. And then I also use. I have some headphones that I use. I just like to check it there too. But when it sounds like enough delay or enough reverb to me, a lot of times I'll get to church, I'll play it, and then I'll hear it on YouTube, and you can't hear my delay at all.
Yeah, man.
And
That's huge.
so I have learned to crank my delay and reverb up a little more than what I think I need. The other dynamic that I'm dealing with is that what I hear in my in-ear versus what is being heard in the large, auditorium where we are, or worship center, I guess is what you call it, versus what actually goes on YouTube. So what sounds wet enough to go on YouTube probably sounds like too much in the room, because there's a lot of I'm gonna tell you right now, the place where I play, it's a weird building. There's a lot of echoes. There's a lot of, if you hear the pastor speak, you hear him from about 3 different directions because of the way the room's set up. The new production guy or the sound guy that's there, he's actually going to be trying to fix some of the issues that are in that room. I love this guy, by the way. We talk guitars. We're both pretty chill, and I'm not coming in there, hopefully not too much of a diva. But he's super chill, and I'll just ask him questions like, hey, I listen back to the YouTube, and it sounds like my guitar is darker than what I had dialed in. Oh, he says, oh, okay, come with me. He took me up to a room where they mix the stuff that goes out on social media. He pulled up, my guitars, and he said, oh, okay, there was a couple plug-ins on it. And he said, they had the highs backed off a little bit. So he fixed that. Just little things like that. And we're just talking guitar, and I'm not being, I'm not demanding that I be heard. I'm just asking the question, hey, I dialed it in this way, but it's coming out this way on YouTube. And I will say this, in that room with the proper setup and, the speakers that are there coming straight from the computer, I actually felt like a guitarist because it sounded great. I'm like, oh, that's me? Whoa. Then when I hear it on YouTube, I'm like, oh. There's something that happens between the computer and it getting uploaded to YouTube. It just sounds not as good. But anyway, and I can't remember, have I told that story before? I can't remember if I've told it here on the podcast. But it's just an interesting dynamic to me to deal with what it sounds like in my headphones or in my room where I prepare versus what it actually sounds like in the sanctuary where we play versus what goes on YouTube. And I want to get a wireless set just for practice so I can walk out into the sanctuary to hear. Now it's going to be a little different because there's not, a bunch of bodies in there absorbing sound. But I just think it's an interesting dynamic. And I have learned to push mids like crazy versus what I would normally play at home. Mm-hmm. I have a cut through the mix EQ setting on my Kemper that I can use, and I use it a lot. But anyway, there's a lot of EQ settings I can do in the Kemper to push what I think I need. And listen, I'm not trying to make my guitar completely prominent over everything, but I'm dealing with instruments like from the orchestra, and we're battling straight for the same frequencies. And not that I think that I need to be over them all the time, but I think there are times when the guitar is very prominent in the song and therefore needs to be heard. And sometimes I struggle with trying to get heard on those parts. So I don't know. It's a balance. And a lot of songs that are church that go, they're kind of rock and roll-ish, or at least guitar-driven songs. They go through a filter and get churched up. And the next thing you know, there's, all the harmony parts and all the orchestra parts that weren't in the original song, and it just changes the dynamics of the song of what I think I need to play or how I think it needs to sound. Even if I had the direct guitar tones, it would be different because I'm playing it with an orchestra, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'll be quiet now. I've been talking a lot. So. Well,
I think that segues into the next topic we wanted to talk about is since you brought up playing in church, we all play in church. We all played in church this last Sunday for Easter. Let's talk about Easter, how it went for us, what we thought. from the perspective of being a player or leading worship, what worked well, maybe what didn't, what your experience was. I guess we'll start with you again, Michael.
Oh, y'all just like to hear me talk.
Yeah.
Easter. I mean, it's a long day, and my day was not as long as some of the guys that I know who, they're starting on Saturday night or even Friday with some services. But we did 3 services on Sunday morning, starting at 8, and made for a long morning, but it was a great morning. There was a lot of excitement in the air, and of course, if you're a Christian and celebrating the resurrection of Christ, this is the Christmas of our Easter, or the Easter of our Christmas. No, anyway, Christmas and Easter are the 2 big times that we celebrate during the year, and so there was a lot of excitement in the air, and I, as a player, sometimes it's hard for me to actually worship while I play because I'm focused on the parts. And that can be difficult because I don't want to mess my parts up, but I also want to kind of think about what we're singing and playing. For me, I love the song Death Was Arrested. I've played it enough that I don't have to think as hard about what I'm playing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And so that's a song I can get into from a worship perspective versus some of the other songs I play. I think the morning went great. I had 3 chances to mess up, and I messed up all 3 times on on the songs. No performance was perfect, but I think we did a great job. And for me, I look at Easter as, of course, the celebration of what we believe in as Christians, but then also the camaraderie that I have with the people that I play with. And I play with the worship director I work with, he's just a genuine guy. The associate worship director is a genuine guy. And these are just good people that I get to be around and I'm influenced by. And the choir, the worship team, the other singers, kind of lead singers, and the other guys I get to play with, the other guitarist and bass player and the drummer, and I don't know, there's just a lot of camaraderie, and it's fun being a part of a team. And I'm not always the most worshipful when I play because I'm trying to actually focus on what I'm playing. And so I wish we would do some songs more often so I could focus on worship, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I think I'm a mediocre player. I don't think I'm a great player. I don't think I'm an awful player. I think I'm a decent player, but I have to work at it, and then I have to think about it. And I do make mistakes. I mean, it happens. But anyway, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm coming from as far as I try to get involved in worship, but I also try to make sure I nail those notes.
Yeah. What about you, Josh?
Well, I kind of told you guys right when it happened, but man, I had a great week last week, on Easter, partially because I practiced the songs a touch more after the defeat of the week before, partially because I was playing the guitar that I wanted to play, or that I decided it just is the guitar I need to play. And the big thing is, last week and this week, I kind of decided, we reset the stage, and I kind of decided, well, I'm just not going to use a music stand because when I'm not leading, and I'm not going to use my tablet when I'm not actually leading worship. Mm-hmm. And so I went ahead and just played, and last week was a little bit rough, not because of that, but this week it was like, okay, I can glance over at the other acoustic guitar player's sheets if I need to look at it for a second. And kind of remind myself of what's going on. But I was just so free playing. Like, yeah. I just stopped thinking about playing entirely and just played whatever felt right at the moment. And there were some lead lines that were supposed to be in the songs, and I could play them. And there were some things that I just kind of skipped because I wasn't feeling it at the time. And it felt great. it felt really good. And I think I learned that, that it's not so necessary to get everything right. It's more important to get everything feeling good for where everything is at. So like each song, I would just kind of feel it out before I would decide what I wanted to do, unless there was a particular lead line, and it was just very freeing and very very enjoyable, because of that. And it was more like playing in a band or jamming rather than feeling this rigid. I think we all kind of get that rigid feeling when we're trying to lead worship, because you're doing something very different than playing a song for somebody. You have a specific purpose, and that purpose can sometimes cloud what you're doing on the side. You're playing guitar. You're supposed to be and the thing about leading worship is you're supposed to be the one worshiping up there, showing people, hey, this is how it's done. Otherwise, and you have permission to worship. Is kind of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because somebody else, rather than just doing karaoke. Otherwise, that's what you do. Why would we have people playing when you can have tracks and you could just have one guy singing in the front, kind of emoting, and leading everybody else. And a lot of churches do that, but why would we have people play at all if that wasn't our purpose for being up there, saying, hey, look, we're making this music and you can join in with us. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be good. I mean,
yeah.
you're singing, because we're all here in process. That kind of is what happened this week, and this last week, and I'm really looking forward to playing this week because of it. Now, who knows? The other thing that I did this week as opposed to the week before is I didn't practice the week before with my in-ears in. And so that made a big difference, because now I was used to the sound. Again, after several weeks of playing acoustic and using different effects or different system and everything like that I had a little bit different kind of control on. So that's kind of what happened with me this Easter. It was really a great time for me. What about awesome. You guys? What about you, Clifton?
Well, let me just back up and preface. I kind of went into this that thinking about, because I led this service, and so I was thinking about what songs to do, and a couple weeks out, and we were kind of in some time crunch for some different reasons. We were working in the new guitar player, and we kind of, like the week before, the first week, getting him acclimated to playing with a group, and so we were kind of didn't have a lot of time in practice that we normally would, like to go ahead and do some of the newer ones we wanted to work on for the next week. So I was trying to think of striking a good balance between something familiar and also something like refreshing and new. And so I had a couple songs. One was Glorious Day and Resurrecting. We haven't been doing those two, and I know they've been around about a year or two. And so what I decided to do was to have both. We were going to run them in rehearsal, and I was going to see how they went, and if they both bombed, I had songs that I was going to plug in there. But I wanted to at least attempt one of those in the service. And so we started off with something familiar, and we ended up making the decision in sound check to do Glorious Day. So we started off Your Love Awakens Me, and then we went straight into Glorious Day. And then we went into Because He Lives after that. So let me just kind of give you some background what was happening, and this, I think you guys can identify with some of this is the struggle, right, when you're trying to lead worship, is we had done a complete stage teardown during the week, because Friday we had this drama thing where this guy came in and he did a presentation, and he needed the whole stage for his backdrops and everything. Well, so we were like up till real late on Friday night tearing that down, putting the stage back, and to be quite honest, I was a little nervous coming in Sunday morning, uh, hoping everything was connected right and working, and you know what I'm saying?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I was just
Oh
hoping
yeah.
that everything was gonna, like, that we weren't gonna fight technical issues our entire hour before church. And fortunately, um, everything was solid, and I kind of have a little note in my phone that I keep of this plugs into here, this plugs into here, and I was very meticulous, making sure this direct box went here. You know, this cable went to this correct one. And I have them all numbered out. So, anyways, um, we had an extremely rough practice. It was kind of like, oh no, this is gonna be bad. And when you think about Easter, like, you don't want Easter to be bad, right? I mean, any other week,
That's
like
the yeah.
any other week, like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that was bad, but it'll be okay. But like Easter, it's not okay if like, it's not okay if it's bad. And so I was nervous, and my wife runs up to me. We have the countdown on the projector, 5 minutes before church, and she asked for my keys. She said, "I need the keys. Isla just threw up."
Oh no.
And I was like, "Oh man." So I handed her the keys. So at that point, I was on edge. But I'm telling you what, like, we got in, and somehow, like, it pulled together and was amazing. And we did. I was nervous about doing that brand new song, second in the set like that, but like, people really engaged with it, and I could visibly see people participating in that song, singing along, and they were catching on with it, and it went amazing. Um, we get off the stage, and I go to find my wife, and um, my little girl threw up again, and I was like, "Oh man, we've got to, this is terrible." And so, anyways, I ended up, our piano player. I asked her if she would go ahead and plan to go back up and at the end of service and play, and it went flawless. She handled it. It went good. Hardly anybody knew that I had to leave, and it was a blessing. But all that to say this, as much as you try and plan whatever, you just kind of have to have, if you want to put it in terms like this, I think that you guys would understand. You just got to have faith and can kind of commit it and say, look, we're doing our best here. And the energy there was just something. It was kind of rare. It's not something that you get every week, and it was just, people were receptive of it. People worshiped. It was amazing. And I wish you were talking about your live stream. I went back, and we had all kind of issues with our live stream that day, and so we had to end up taking it down, deleting it off, and I put up we recorded a disc, and I put up like a hard copy and put it back up on the internet. But I went and listened to it, and like, the mix was not good, and I was kind of disappointed about that. But um, I think all things considered, all the different directions we were being pulled and everything, I think we had a good day. So that's kind of the life of a church worship leader / guitarist, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot to mention, with mine, there were like 5 child baptisms where they went through the class and everything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the church was absolutely packed with people. Like every pew was filled, and every pew was filled, every spot was taken, and there were actually overflow chairs in the narthex, which is crazy, considering that. Well, it was just crazy.
Yeah.
And the energy there was just having the child baptism, and because it was Easter, we had all these little we had like a little movie thing, mixed media, and we had different stuff happening, and it was like, man, I wish church could be like this every week.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's like, then again, if church was like this every week, we would get probably kind of tired of it, or we would get used to it. Because I remember there were times in previous situations where we always had like little skits and stuff going on, which I'm not crazy about skits, but like we always had something different going on in mixed media, and it got to the point where it was like just too showy, kind of, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But this week this last Easter it made it just feel really special because of all the baptisms and everything like that. And there's nothing like playing to a packed church where you can hear them over your noise canceling in ears
Yeah.
singing, back at you. Yep. So
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah, it was a good week, and it was like so cool to watch these kids, all get baptized, and have gone through 2 months or 3 months of classes to learn what that means.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of here in the congregation, we did a version of Because He Lives, bluegrass style, and they had a banjo player and a violin player come in, and then I played the mandolin, and then we had our bass player. He brought his stand-up bass, and then our acoustic guitar player, and then it was just us and the singer, and I actually pulled my in-ears out to play. We kind of the singer was kind of more off to the center of the stage, and we were off kind of to the side where we normally are. But it was very cool to just almost felt like I was in a real band,
Yeah.
We are just standing around, and I can hear the banjo. I can hear everything because I'm just listening to what's here. I'm not, it's not, none of it's mic'd and going into my in-ears. It's just I'm there. I'm in the middle of it, and it was a very cool experience. And so it was fun to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Talking about playing in church, that was a little funny thing. I woke up this morning and you had sent me this message of this guy who had kind of came in hot a little bit in Gear Talk Praise and Worship. What was that guy's name? Scotty something. I don't remember.
Beam me up, Scotty Kirk.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Anyway.
Yeah, maybe you guys would be better at kind of saying what he said, but I'm going to paraphrase it. Pretty much.
This is funny. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Guys, he was like, I play 60 to 70 songs a week. And all I have is a Chinese copy of a Blues Junior. And I don't know, he named like some super simple rig, and it was like, and I don't understand how all y'all obsess over all this gear and whatever. And he kind of dropped a bomb, right?
Oh, yeah.
And like people, what was his saying? I don't mean to be pretentious. Is that what he started off saying?
Something
let me pull
like
it
that
up for you, because I actually have what he said.
Well, we don't have to read off the whole thing.
But
Well, he just said, I apologize if I come off a bit pretentious or kind of a jerk with this post, but how many of you guys actually kind of laugh when you see some of the worship guitarist rigs? Because I'm an actual gigging musician who gigs on a weekly basis, playing 60 to 70 songs a week, and I've never needed more than my Joyo Bant Amp Blue Jay, which is just a Blues Junior copy, and a 1x12. And his punctuation's awful, by the way. It's hard to read, but I use a carbon copy delay, a TC Electronic Clean Boost, and an EQ pedal from Behringer, and a Boss tuner. And he has an HSS Strat copy that he's modded, and he's never needed more than that. And he can play anything from whether it be metal or jazz or funk or pop or worship. It's just like, okay, good for you, man. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a very condescending. I'm an actual musician, and y'all have better. It was braggy that, okay, look, I like to brag about me being an actual musician, and I have the cheapest gear you can actually find. It's like, okay, good for you, man. I figured it sounded like a fake account to me, and I figured he was just trolling. That group, about 50% of the stuff that gets posted in that group, I just figure is trolling anyway. Aaron Abubo. So anyway, yeah, it was just very condescending. And then, of course, it went downhill, and, somebody lit the fire in the dumpster, and people just kept throwing fire and gasoline on it. And, and he left the group, but... Oh, and then he would get like, well, that's very Christian to y'all to blah, blah, blah this. And I'm like, dude, you're coming into a group that's specifically about gear, and you're basically crapping on the fact that y'all have gear, and look at me, I'm an actual gigging musician.
Like, hashtag okay, actual gigging musician. That's the new.
Yeah, hashtag actual gigging musician. So, I don't know. I mean, if that's what he plays, good on him. But
that it just what's interesting to me is it sounds like the kind of thing that somebody who's playing in their bedroom says. It really does, because when you're playing in your bedroom with a little amp and a few pedals, you can scoop out the mids and put your driveway up and play a metal song. You can put the mids back in, turn up the reverb on your amp, and turn up your carbon copy delay, and play something that sounds kind of ambient, right? You can do all that stuff in your room really easily, right? Because you've got all day to sit there and twiddle with knobs. Or, somebody who's taking guitar lessons and just learns one song from this style and one song from that style as part of their lessons. And it's like that. It just really sounds like somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience with that. Or it sounds like I was telling you, Michael, it sounds like the kind of dude that can play a whole bunch of stuff but is completely tone deaf as far as like what that song actually needs. So like the type of dude that can that'll sit there and busk with an electric guitar, but they'll have one setting they put it on, and they play that same setting all day for every song. It really sounds like that. It doesn't sound like the kind of guy that's in a functional, and I think we've all been around those type of dudes,
Yeah.
And I think that we've all been those dudes.
There's at my local guitar store, one time I walked in, and this older gentleman was sitting in front of an amp with a guitar, and he wasn't even really playing chords. He was just chucking back and forth, and he was moving his hands up and down the neck, but they weren't making any chords. And I kind of looked at one of the guitar store employees, and he gave me this look like, this dude's in here all the time. Like, and that's kind of what I think. And honestly, 100%, I think this guy came in here knowing exactly what he was doing, and he was trolling.
Oh yeah.
I mean, even the name. I mean, and I I even posted on the thread. I was like, is this a made up name? I mean, who really has this name? I mean, it's too close to Star Trek.
Yeah, Clifton Worley. Who has that kind of name? Clifton Worley. My goodness.
But anyway, so, and then I was like, this is 100% a troll, and I still think it's a troll. I mean, he just came in to see what he could stir up, and that's fine. I can appreciate and laugh at those kind of things.
Oh, for sure.
But I made fun of his name a little bit, and he called me out on that, and he's like, "That's very Christian of you." I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to make fun of your name, but this is still a troll post."
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah.
If he wasn't trolling, God bless him. I mean, people really nailed him to the wall too for his punctuation. I mean,
He admitted he said that he had done the whole thing voice to text.
Okay, all right, that would make a whole lot more sense because somebody actually posted like 10 periods in a row, a couple commas, more periods, more commas, more periods, and said, "Here's a punctuation starter pack. See if you can use it."
Let's just not give the guy any ideas. Hopefully, he will not go out in the next 6 months and start his own podcast.
He might. I mean, if I don't know, everybody's on a different journey. If this guy is for real, let's back up. If this was for real and it was a genuine question, then look, everybody, like, I like gear. Do I need a Kemper? No. I like a Kemper. Do some of the guys I know who have huge pedal boards, do they need them? Probably not, but I don't. It's kind of a hobby. I don't play golf. I don't own a sailboat. I don't have any other hobbies really. This is it. So this is kind of where my funds go for hobbies. So anyway, but if that's what he needs to play and he's actually giggling that much and making a living off of it, then good for him. But I still think it was a troll post.
That is a confusing part too, because if you're playing, we were sitting there talking about it. I worked out the math. It's like, that is 9 straight hours of music that's not repeating. If he's saying he's playing 3 hours of music every 3 times, unless he's playing, I guess he could be playing the same set 3 times a week. But
who knows?
But because
that borders on being a full-time musician. If he's playing on stage 9 hours a week and loading in and loading out, that's a guy who's probably, playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday night.
And the problem with that is that if you think about what he's actually got there, I mean, it's just not gig worthy. It's not road worthy for that long. Mm-mm. I mean, no. You've got. I mean, I don't play with a backup for church. I think it's silly to play with a backup for 45 minutes of actual playtime. But you got it, man. If I were doing 3 hours, I would have a backup amp in the car. I would have a couple backup guitars, especially if I'm getting paid and it's my livelihood.
Yeah. If you're playing 9 hours a week, you're gonna break a string every couple weeks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only that, not only you're going to be doing that, it's like all of a sudden you go to a place with a ground loop. Okay, well, I better have an amp that can handle that, or I might better have a noise gate or something like that. There's just things that it's if you're gonna troll, troll with there's art to trolling, and that's artless.
It'd been more believable if he would have said, "Oh, I've got a Telly and a twin
classic
reverb.
30." Even a classic 30, or a quilter, a quilter in a cabinet. It's like, because that's something that will never go out. Having a even a Blues Junior would eventually, it would eventually go out after. I'd imagine you'd be replacing it every year, playing that much and loading in and out of these places. You'd be replacing it or doing service on it every year, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. He posted in a different group that he left the Praise and Worship group under a different name. So, like I said, I 100% believe it was a troll post with a fake name.
Probably so.
Although I will say the name was, I did look at it and it was 5 years old. So he's been on Facebook for 5 years.
Is the name? So, I think you can change names without. But anyway, you know what he did? He gave us an interesting conversation and something to laugh at nearly all day.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, it's been a funny. Some of these, and I'll tell you this: some people get way too serious on the internet.
No. You are full of it there. That's not true.
And they come in way hot with now, but everybody just love Jesus.
Oh, I hate
love
that.
Each other, and and look, there is a time for being genuinely loving to people, and but there's also a time to call out a troll. And
it's the thing is that I just wonder if those people have any fun at all.
I don't know,
because honestly, you're on social media, and you just can't. It's just it's not like they're real. Like it's a real thing for them,
Yeah.
I don't think it's real for most people. And even if it is, you've got that little layer of separation where you just really can't be real. Even
Yeah.
if you're trying really hard, you're still kind of creating a character because, it's not you.
Oh, and his profile picture, I mean, he looked like he was playing a character in that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
But even then, what's interesting is I went ahead and went through his stuff, and it's like, he's just a normal kid.
Yeah.
Just a normal kid. And so, obviously he's maybe a little bit jealous because he doesn't have the money to do this stuff. And so he just did a little troll. It's okay. Everybody
Yeah.
does that.
He posted a gear talk, like just the regular, like not the praise and worship one this afternoon. Was like, does anybody else think that Gibson Les Pauls are terrible? I've played several and they're $3,000 and they don't play good. Do you think?
Well, he's not wrong.
Yeah, and he was like, do you think this will cause the rise of people to start playing other, like, Heritage and other boutique guitars? And I'm kind of like, dude, where have you been? Like, the boutique guitar industry has been thriving for the last 3 or 4 years. Like,
Specifically because of that.
yeah. I'm just like, yeah, that's kind of a mute topic here. But I guess if you haven't been part of the community, you could, and he could be just starting to get into it.
That kind of sounds like me.
Without the doubt.
It kind of sounds just like me after I played my first Gibson. I was immensely disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was excited. Oh man, finally I go to a store that has a Les Paul.
Yeah.
This is a Les Paul. What
I
the
still
heck?
think this is just a troll. I'm
No,
not saying
no.
he's a troll, but I'm just saying he's making troll posts.
No,
He's
I'm
just
not-
trying to see what he can stir up.
I completely agree with you.
Which
but I
is
just
fine.
find
Which
that
is fine.
interesting.
They can be fun. They can be fun.
Yeah, because
I think people control in meanness, and they can troll in fun. And I think
Yeah.
a fun-loving troll can be just fine.
yeah,
Lots of fun.
there's just I think what the difference is you're playing the game with somebody else or somebody's playing their own game, and I think if you're playing your own game, then it's no fun for anybody else.
Yeah.
And I know with me, I'm always like winking if I'm trolling the whole time, and it's like, okay, yeah, I think you guys realize that I don't really care about any of this, and you guys can have all the fun you want bashing, because that's why I'm doing it, so that you can have somebody to bash who genuinely won't flame out or get upset or worried or, because everybody likes to do that. It's just human nature to do that, right? To
Yeah.
just bash
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
somebody.
of course. I kind of didn't like you before I actually talked to you in a normal conversation.
And
like
you still
Messenger.
don't.
Pretty much. I'm like, it was like every time you just had an opportunity to just, flick me on the nose. It's like, dude, stop it.
And the thing is,
That's you. That's you. You just like to flick people on the nose or poke people just to see if you can get a reaction. But you're doing it kind of with a wink and a smile. And you're like,
the thing is that you are not at all what I expected either, Michael.
oh,
I mean,
wow.
No. You're just. I mean, I see this sweet little baby face fella. I'm like, man, I'm gonna get him. He's gonna be fun. And then I see you got a backbone. It's like, oh, cool. I can mess with him even more.
I see. Well, now that I know what you are, it's a lot more fun when I see you make fun of other people because I'm like, he's getting them.
And the thing is, I don't feel like I'm making fun of anybody because it's like I'm not going to take somebody, and I never really go negative. And I think that's the thing.
No.
And I think that's a troll. A bad troll is somebody who goes negative, because you don't go negative on a person. You say something really stupid that's obviously something that nobody cares about enough to really get upset about.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the difference. I mean, that guy was saying something. It's like he's going to get a rise that's genuine because some people don't realize, hey, I'm doing this for fun. I'm getting this stuff for fun. I don't need this. And those are the people that get upset.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing about this community is like once you kind of play in the community for a while and you start to get to know people, like it kind of gets gets hard to be a troll because
No, it doesn't.
your bluff is blown.
Yeah, that's true. That's to be a real troll. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, so talking about all this trolling, I'm fixing to spam you guys, okay?
I'm out.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm by myself on this one. The Whirlybird is we did a little soft launch with it this last week, in the group only, and man, these things are selling like way beyond my expectations.
Pancakes?
Like pancakes, like the stack, right?
Well, no, you make pancakes. You're very good at pancakes.
Well, I try. I practice a lot. I did not want to get embarrassed out there, and I practiced a whole bunch. And now, like, my kids want it like all the time. So, I guess that's a good thing. Yeah, but so the Whirlybird, the pedal, did this collab with Brian over at Spruce Effects, and we decided to do a soft launch last week. We've had several sell. We're waiting for the demo to come out here in the next few days. When that comes out, we're going to go live, and it's going to be, I'm going to advertise it on just open social media. At that point, we'll kind of see where it goes from there. But just wanted to remind the listeners that if you are interested in this, you might want to get in line, because there's about 40% of them already that have kind of been called for and gone. So I don't plan on doing another run of these anytime soon. So
Get on it.
Get on it if you want it. And,
I love it.
and so I just it's something that I dig, and I like to share things, and hope if it's your thing, sounds like it's up your alley, and you like the chopper sounds. Oh, today I got a little preview clip of the Whirlybird that was the guy who's doing the demo for it, and we put that up today, and it blew my mind what he was able to do with the pedal. Just all the overdubbing and things. He was showing how it could kind of fit within a mix, and how it's just not a one-trick pony. So I was really excited about that. I can't wait to get mine in and start playing with it that way as well. So it is available right now in the Facebook group, or you can contact Brian and he can get you set up at Spruce Effects. And anyways, so that's my spam, my minute to toot my own horn, and now I'm done. And self-promotion makes me feel really greasy and nasty, and so that's all I'm going to say about it tonight.
Now I got to ask you about that pedal.
Okay.
Does it do a slower tremolo than what or does it get nice and slow and throbby, or does it just kind of top out?
It does not get as slow as you can get an amp one to go slow.
Okay.
If that makes sense. But it does get slow enough that it's a normal setting, if that makes sense. So It doesn't go as slow as some, but it goes as slow as most.
Okay. That's good to know. That's good to know.
And
right.
Here's the thing that this is the kind of secret about it. And I think once some of these start getting mailed out, I expect that those who receive it are going to be pleasantly surprised with this. But when you turn the tremolo all the way down, you have a pretty awesome germanium gain stage. And that's the secret recipe right there. Brian's germanium circuit is, I don't know how that works. I just know that he knows how to season it to taste to make it sound amazing. And every Spruce pedal that I've played, I've just been blown out of the water, because he knows how to season these things to sound just right. And he knows germanium like nobody's business.
Now, I'm going to ask a question of you. With that pedal, why don't you run us through the features a little bit on it, man? I'm going to
Okay.
interview you, and
Okay.
you tell me about that pedal. What are the features of it, and what can you do with that pedal that you can't do with a normal tremolo?
Okay. This is kind of hard to describe. I brought it out to NAM with me, Winter NAM, and let several of the people play it, like at the house I was staying at, and then I brought it to the pancake party. And this was the thing that kept coming up when people would play it. I said, first of all, like how choppy it got was just unreal. Like that's not usual. But then the other thing was how the tremolo reacted with the gain that you gave it. Because you could make that tremolo behave really weird by the way you were pushing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, like if you were slamming out that gain knob, like it would make that tremolo start to wobble and push differently.
Huh.
And it's something. I hate to say this when people say this. You gotta play it to understand it. But like that's one of those things. I'm tangibly trying to explain this, but maybe when I get one back in front of me, I'll try to demo that. But
Is
yeah.
it the kind of thing that you could say if you've got the tremolo down enough that you could leave always on and use it as a bass tone, and then use your guitar's volume to ramp up and down? Does it clean up pretty nice?
Yes, it cleans up pretty nice, and like there's a toggle switch right in the middle. So the control set basically is like a speed and a depth. On the tremolo side, it's on the right, and then on the left you've got the gain and tone for the germanium boost, preamp, whatever you want to call it. So you can turn down the speed and the depth all the way and use that gain circuit. Or likewise, you can turn that gain down and clean it really up and just have like a pretty much like straight up tremolo sound. Okay. Inside, there's a trim pot that you can gain up that germanium transistor. So you can season it to taste even more. Like, depending on if you're playing a guitar with humbuckers or single coils, whatever. I haven't played with that yet. So then in the middle of the pedal is it's an order switch. And so you can, and this is kind of hard to explain what it does. You just kind of have to use your ears and say, yes, this does something different. The toggle switch switches the order of the drive and the tremolo. So you can have like tremolo first that's going into a drive section, or vice versa, which is my favorite, where you're gaining into the tremolo section.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
So you're the more out of control you get, the more it wobbles.
Ah, cool. Okay.
So it's kind of like you're flying a chopper and you pull that throttle back and it gets going. So
Cool.
yeah, so yeah, really excited about how this turned out, and I'm just happy to share it with everybody. And it was just an idea that I got together with Brian. I guess it was about this time last year. I went out to San Francisco to one day, and I got to meet Brian because I stopped out in Menlo Park to pick up a demo board that I was going to bring to Co for one day. Since I flew into SFO and they were all the way over in Tracy, I stopped over in Menlo Park and picked up this demo board, and I got to meet Brian at his work, and he kind of walked me through his pedals. And when I was at one day, I played his whole lineup at the time that he had, and I was just blown away with his pedals. Like, I mean, infatuated with them. and he's just a really cool guy, and I like what he's doing, and I wanted to team up with him, and so we've been talking a little less than a year now, and this has come to fruition, and just happy for it to finally be out there, and everybody. I keep saying this, but like for so long I've been playing these amps with tremolo circuits in them, like my Pro Reverb I had for a while, my Super Reverb. Right now I'm playing a Princeton, and I've relied so heavy on having that in the amp, and this really is kind of, if you could take Clifton Worley and put his amp in a box, like the sound he likes, this is kind of an extension, and it does more because the speed of this thing is like can go out of control. So, and that hence the helicopter, and that's kind of where the whole idea with the graphics came on that. So
cool. Well, thank you for explaining that to me.
Yeah, and I hope that makes sense. And it's something I'm very passionate about, and I like to. Hopefully, I'm communicating that well, so everybody can grab a hold of that. But demo should be out soon, and once that gets out, I think that it will. This guy's really good. He can kind of communicate what this pedal does and all the capabilities, and so. And I can't wait for I've had several friends order one. I can't wait to see those get in their hands and see what they can do with them, because that's the cool thing about a piece of gear is it's not what I can do with it, it's seeing what other people are going to be creating and be able to do with it themselves. That I think it's just exciting to me.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
So yeah, stay tuned in the group. It's going to be a lot of activity in the next week or so, announcements about that, and also if we'd love to keep the discussion going in the group, things we've said in this episode, topics, maybe how your Easter went, your thoughts on non-negotiables, and we'd love to hear from you other Worleybirds and be part of the discussion. Well, thanks guys. It's been a blast getting to hang out again. Appreciate y'all coming on the show, and it's been fun to hang.
It's been fun. Let's go troll the group now. or invite any of the listeners to come and troll the group.
I think I'm gonna let Aaron Abubo do all that for me, and I'll just comment and chime in. This is just a side note. I want to, if you are interested in a hilarious Instagram account to follow, it's called Jazzmaster Facts Daily. Is that it?
That's correct, and they have some of the best factual information out there about Jazzmasters and the history of gear.
It is mind-blowing.
In quotes. I put that in quotes.
Yes. Facts you are completely unaware of, and have been vaulted since the 1950s, and now are available to us today.
That's a fun account to follow and see people who do not know what it is, and they're like, "What?" Like, I saw somebody post the other day, like, "Are you serious?" And somebody said, just responded, "This is satire."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. If you want to learn, he did one hilarious today about the Mustang Bridge on a Jazzmaster, and he kept.
I did not see that one.
And he was talking about how Theo Fender made a mistake, but. So
he was we were in a different group, and he actually he was accusing me of actually running that account, and I was like, It's actually well written. I'll take credit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not that good of a writer, but I will take credit since it's so well written.
I thought originally
And maybe
it
we're
could have
blowing
been...
the water on this. He might be mad that we're letting people know, but anyway,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
So, to our audience that even listens. So,
He'll
if you're
deny it
listening,
anyway.
thank you. Well, it's been fun, guys. We'll talk later.
Yeah, we'll see you, man.
Stay grounded. Oh, wait a minute. We can't use that one. That's a different podcast.
Oh,
We're going to be building them. I'm just joking. I did that on purpose.
If you want it, get on it.
good hashtag.
Kemper for life. Hashtag Kemper for life.
Actual gigging musician.
Oh, there you go. Hashtag actual gigging musician.
All right.
Man, working muso is so much better. See you guys.
Working music. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Later.
We're just going to take all of the taglines from every other podcast.
Yeah, yep. Thanks for friendship.
Okay. Hashtag cease and desist.
We have fun, guys. We have fun. That's what Cole says. We have fun here.
Do we, though? No, wait.
We do. We're getting delirious. It's too late at night. All right.